it is a very powerful tool for unsticking your weight. So if you are looking for that, don't think that your opportunity to lose weight is over because the fast is over, because you can still really keep that weight loss going. This is the beginning of a 15-day experience, like 14, 15 days. And I want to speak at it from the lens of coming off a 3-day water fast, because coming off a 3-day water fast is a very unique moment. And I even noticed it for myself when even as I integrated food back in, I felt like I was still making ketones. I was still dropping weight. I looked at my face in the mirror before the whole fire thing, and I was like, oh my God, like I've been eating, but I still feel like my metabolism was like like it was really working efficiently. So that's great if you want to lose weight. That's awesome. It's also really one of the beautiful possibilities of like a longer fast like this, is that it really can reset your whole metabolism. I'll tell you an experience I had was when I was working with Jesse Itzler's group, and I had a group of entrepreneurs that I was the fasting coach for. That many of you have been around for a while. You've heard me talk about this. But I took a group of like 100 entrepreneurs who had hardcore people who had never fasted before. And so they were like, okay, we're going without food for 3 days, no problem. And they went into this experience without any preparation, without anything. And I was shocked, at how well they did. I mean, they white knuckled it. A lot of them were men. But what shocked me afterwards was how many, for months, how many of the women told me, my God, I kept losing weight and I kept losing weight. So it is a very powerful tool for unsticking your weight. So if you are looking for that, don't think that your opportunity to lose weight is over because the fast is over, because you can still really keep that weight loss going. So let me speak at it from that lens, and then I'll speak at it from the lens of those of you who don't want to lose weight that came off of this 3-day water fast. So the first is, if you are a postmenopausal woman, you don't have a cycle to track to, and you are trying to lose weight, keep going with the ketobiotic. So I had really wanted, coming off my 3-day water fast, I've been really in love with what I'm learning and writing about around ketones and how they're so nourishing for the brain. And I'm going to talk about that from a postmenopausal lens and from a perimenopausal lens in a moment. I did talk about it last week, but I want to, since this group typically is a little more advanced, I wanted to kind of give it a little more context. But anytime, if you're not mapping to a cycle, the absolute best way to eat on a consistent, like I'm going to say 80-20 rule here, like 80% of the time, 20%, we just say you do what you want. But 80% of the time, ketobiotic is going to be the thing that's going to get you to burn fat the best. And you're only in ketobiotic are you getting carbs from nature's food. That's what makes it so unique, is that I'm not saying you got to keep like your carbs down. So when you see interviews out there and you see people who are like, keto's bad for women, I want you to understand that the keto they're talking about is like 10 to 20 grams net carbs. That is, you would dose that in if you were like really in a place of like, I need to drop weight for a wedding. I need to do something to drop weight fast. like that's where you would go to those really low carbs, and you would do them whether you're cycling or you're post, menopausal. You would do those in a very short burst. When we are go into our reproductive years into our post reproductive years, I'm going to call it 40 to 55. This is sort of that transition. You aren't just transitioning away from estradiol, and you're not just transitioning away from progesterone. You are also transitioning away from being very sensitive to glucose. And so you start to do a lot better in a ketogenic state, because I really strongly feel that things like bread and pastas and cakes and cookies and all of that become more and more and more problematic the older you get. Bottom line, which is Alzheimer's is type 3 diabetes. It is a version of diabetes. So Alzheimer's is just a fancy term that we're giving, a diagnosis that we give for this neuronal plaque entanglement. These neurons, these tau proteins that bunch up and cause Alzheimer's, they become neurodegenerative because they've been marinating in glucose. And there hasn't been enough ketones. So as we age, if we don't get this freaking glucose thing under control, it's not just Alzheimer's, it's not just your weight, it's your memory, it's your focus, it's your brain power. At 40, your brain starts to become more accepting and receptive to ketones, and it becomes less and less receptive to glucose. End of story. And at 70, your brain is dying for some ketones and is less and less, doesn't know what to do. And this goes for both men and women, by the way, becomes like almost like it can't take in the glucose. It doesn't know what to do with that. So the inflammation begins. And when the inflammation begins, then those tau proteins start to crumble. And now there's no signals going from neuron to neuron. The neurons start to decay and degenerate. So when we're looking at metabolic switching, when you've come off a 3-day water fast, you've spent, a good portion in fat burning. You've been making ketones. So if you are in your postmenopausal years, I want you just to microdose sugar burner. You should be in a ketogenic state more than in a sugar burner state. And when I'm talking about how do you stay over here in this fat burning place, there are several ways to do that. One of them is longer fasts. So my postmenopausal friends, you do really well with one meal a day. Many of you are experiencing that. You do really well with 17, 18, 19 hours of fasting every day, easy peasy. A lot of you are experiencing that, and that is okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about some hormone feasting ideas, but that's okay, because if you don't, the less and less estrogen you have, the more this fat burning ketogenic state becomes imperative for your brain health. I want you making ketones on a regular basis. And you can do that by fasting a little longer. And you do that by a ketobiotic diet that says the majority of your carbs come from nature's food. Actually, and those of you that are in your perimenopausal years, like same thing. I'll tell you, when I really got like a lot of my focus and memory stuff under control was in my late 40s, when I decided I wasn't eating refined flours and sugars, even if they were natural, even if they were gluten free. I had decided somewhere around 47 that I was going to go into longer fasts, and fruit and vegetables and squashes and potatoes were going to be my carbs, and that the grains were going to be low on the list. Maybe I have a piece of toast once every 2 to 3 weeks, like very small, like not a lot, because I felt like my brain worked so much better in this keto state. So if you have come off the 3-day water fast and you're postmenopausal, let's keep you over there a little bit more, because you've already trained yourself. It's already feeling natural. And so you might even be able to fast 1 day a week. You might be able to, if you're trying to lose weight, you might be able to throw another 2-day water fast. Like I hear over and over and over again, postmenopausal women say it's just easy to fast. It's just really much easier to fast if that's you. And I believe that's because as we go into these lower estrogen years, we actually need those to be in this ketogenic state. So it's okay to be over in keto and fat burning for the postmenopausal woman 80% of the time. Now, that hormone feasting, maybe one day you go into the squashes and the potatoes. The only bread I'm a fan of going into is fermented sourdough. And that's because a fermented sourdough can help make oxytocin because of the fermentation process. So that would be the only like bread that I would say that I've been willing to dip into. Otherwise, I just stay off refined flours. I think for memory, I think for preservation, like I talked about, how ketones really protect the brain from toxins. I think for the postmenopausal state, that's very, very important. You just have to 1 day a week make sure you're eating enough of the squashes and the potatoes. Or if you are noticing any anxiety or trouble sleeping, or some of the symptoms I've talked about of low progesterone, you can go more towards the carbs.
Okay, my baby's coming to you. Eat like a girl. You want to know the foods that will support hormones? Guess what? I have them for you already. It's a free giveaway. Just click the link below and I'll send you a list of all the foods that support amazing hormonal health.
For the perimenopausal woman who's over 40, what I want her to know, or even over 35, what I want her to know is you are in a transition of about 10 to 15 years where you're going to be more sensitive to ketones. So this fact that you're learning the metabolic switch, where you can really make sure you're cleaning up your sugar burner system, that you're not eating a lot of sugar, that maybe you are eating some processed carbs here or there, but your goal needs to be like really getting comfortable with more longer fasts, really getting comfortable with the ketobiotic diet, and then knowing how to use symptoms, or if you have a cycle, making sure the week before your period that you go into the hormone feasting foods, which are more the potatoes, the rices, their quinoas, and maybe you go into more fermented breads, that's fine. But or some really ancient grains, that would also be okay. You're going to spend a little more time in hormone feasting because you still have a pretty good amount of progesterone and you're just learning this switch. But the more you get comfortable in the fat burning state, the more you get comfortable in the ketobiotic diet, the better your menopause symptoms are going to be. And the more your brain is going to come online. Whereas the postmenopausal woman needs to actually live over here a little bit more than she ever has. Hopefully that kind of gives you a vision. Like my brain sort of sees this as like, I see it sort of aging as like this like linear line, and down here is 35. Let's call this 30. We'll just go, this is 30 and this is 60. And so as you're moving from 30 to 60, you're becoming more and more in touch with this ketogenic fat burning system, so that by the time you get to 60, you're like, I'm fasting, I eat one meal a day. Remember the Okinawa women. What did the Okinawa women do? They have less amount of calories, and that's why they think they live longer, is because they have less calories. So the goal from 30 to 60 is to start to become more proficient in this keto state, so that you get ketones to protect your brain. And how you get ketones is by longer fasts and staying off refined carbohydrates. So hopefully that's making sense.
Okay, where are my gals that are struggling with hormonal imbalance? Bloated, feeling like you're not making progress with weight loss? You need to add these foods in so that you can support better hormonal health. There is a lifestyle that estrogen wants you to live, and there is a lifestyle that progesterone wants you to live.